At that upscale dinner, my mother raised her glass and laughed. My daughter works in, what is it again? Oh, some kind of paid hobby. The whole table erupted in laughter. I set my napkin down and said, I'm leaving this table tonight and leaving the role of the obedient youngest child. The next morning, the entire town was buzzing. I had vanished from my family. That afternoon, an email made my father turn pale, an invitation to witness the notarization of the mansion they'd been bragging about for 10 years. Saturday evening, under the crystal chandelier lights, I opened the velvet box, pulled out the deed, and invited the entire room to raise a toast to the new owner of someone else's dream. My name is Avery Blake, and until that night at the Marigold Room, I'd perfected the art of smiling through family dinners where I was the punchline. The rooftop restaurant gleamed with everything my parents valued: crystal stemware catching candlelight, a panoramic view of the Platte River, and most importantly, an audience of Riverton's elite to witness their golden son's latest triumph. Caleb had just made senior financial advisor at 35, and my parents, Gerald and Lorraine Whitaker, had orchestrated this celebration with the precision of a military campaign. To Caleb, my father's voice boomed across our corner of the terrace. Following the Whitaker tradition of excellence, I watched the Bordeaux swirl in my glass, a 2015 vintage my mother had name-dropped 3 times already. Around our table sat the usual suspects: Mark Henderson from First National Bank, the Carsons who owned half the commercial real estate downtown, Judge Patricia Morse and her husband, people who mattered, as my mother would say. And how's your project going? Avery, Mrs. Carson asked, her tone suggesting she was asking about a child's finger painting. Before I could answer, my mother's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Oh, Avery does something with computers. Software. It's all very... She waved her hand dismissively, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. Modern. Though we keep telling her that Mark's bank has real positions available. It's actually a supply chain optimization platform, I said evenly. We're about to close a major. She calls it Northline Atlas, my father interrupted, shaking his head with practiced disappointment. Another one of those apps. You know how millennials are with their startups. Here today, bankrupt tomorrow. The table chuckled knowingly. I noticed how Judge Morse's husband checked his Patek Philippe, how Mrs. Carson touched her pearls, how everyone performed their roles in this dinner theater where I was cast as the family disappointment. At least she's keeping busy, Caleb added, his voice dripping with older brother condescension. Though maybe spend less time obsessing over features and more time learning how to actually talk to clients. Right, Avery? That's what real business is about. Real business, I repeated, my voice flat. I cataloged every detail the way my mother's fingers drummed against her new clutch. Hermes. She'd mentioned twice the satisfaction in my father's eyes as he surveyed his kingdom of sycophants, the $1,400 bottles of wine ordered to impress people who already had everything. You know, my mother continued, turning to Judge Morse. We've tried to guide her toward something more substantial, but she insists on this tech hobby. It's not a hobby, I said quietly. We have actual contracts. Of course, dear. My mother cut me off with surgical precision. But wouldn't it be nice to have a real job with benefits? A retirement plan. Something you could explain at parties without people's eyes glazing over. The laughter that followed felt rehearsed, as if they'd all been waiting for their cue. My father raised his glass again, the amber light from the heat lamps turning the wine the color of old blood. Perhaps when this latest venture fails, you'll finally consider that position at Mark's bank, he said. The offer won't stand forever. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin beside my untouched plate of $40 salmon. The conversation died instantly. Where are you going? My mother hissed, her smile frozen for the audience. I looked at each face around the table, these people who'd watched me grow up, who'd patted my head at country club events, who'd never once asked about my actual work with genuine interest. I don't need dessert, I said. my voice carrying across the suddenly silent terrace. I need a door. And I'm taking it. The walk to the elevator felt like miles, my heels clicking against the hardwood, leaving behind the suffocating weight of their expectations and their small, glittering world where success meant playing a role someone else had written for you. Behind me, I heard my mother's nervous laugh, already spinning the story. You know how sensitive she is about her little company. But I was already gone, my mind racing ahead to what would come next. They wanted real. They wanted substantial. They were about to learn exactly what Avery Blake could build when she stopped asking for permission. The Colorado night air hit my face like cold water, sharp and clarifying. I sat in my Tesla for a moment in the Marigold Room's parking garage, hands gripping the wheel, watching the city lights blur through tears I refused to let fall. My phone buzzed incessantly, the family group chat lighting up like a dashboard warning system I no longer needed to heed. I drove without thinking, muscle memory taking me through Riverton's historic district where the old money lived in their limestone fortresses. That's when I saw it Hawthorne House, illuminated by landscape lighting that turned its Renaissance revival facade into something out of a dream, or a nightmare, depending on which side of the gate you stood. For 10 years, I'd heard my mother describe this place in reverent tones. She'd kept the real estate listing from when it last sold, framed it like some people frame college degrees. 8,000 square feet of legacy, she'd say. The Hawthorns hosted senators here. Can you imagine? I could imagine. I pulled over and stared at those windows, dark except for the security lights. My phone vibrated again, a text from Lorraine. Don't be dramatic. Avery, come home tomorrow and we'll discuss your behavior like adults. I blocked the family group chat with 3 taps. Then I blocked their individual numbers. The silence that followed felt like taking off a too tight shoe. Maya, I said when my co-founder picked up on the first ring, are you sitting down? It's 11:45 p.m. I'm in bed. What happened? Did the dinner go that badly? I walked out. The words felt foreign in my mouth. Powerful. And I'm done playing their game. We're going to play mine instead. I could hear Maya sitting up, fully awake now. Okay, talk to me. What's the play? I stared at Hawthorne House, its windows reflecting the streetlights like eyes waiting to open. We're going to land Barlow and Finch and Silver Root. Full deployment, not just a pilot. And we're going to do it in 30 days. Avery, we've been courting them for 6 months. They want to see 2 more quarters of no more waiting, no more proving ourselves gradually. We're going all in. I pulled up my phone's calculator, running numbers I'd memorized months ago. If we can guarantee them 12% cost savings on their cold chain logistics, lock in Silver Route as the exclusive carrier partner with our routing optimization, that's a combined contract value of $8 million annually, which would trigger our Series A term sheet from Stonebridge, Maya said slowly, understanding dawning in her voice. And give us enough for a bridge round immediately. I smiled in the dark. Enough for a significant down payment on commercial real estate, or residential, if someone were looking to make a statement. Holy shit, you're going to buy something they can't ignore. I'm going to buy something they've been salivating over for a decade. I shifted the car into drive. Can you meet me at the office in 20 minutes? Already getting dressed. I made one more call as I drove, watching the mountain silhouettes against the star-scattered sky. Dana Rowe answered on the 3rd ring, her voice professionally alert despite the hour. Dana, it's Avery Blake. I need you to structure something for me, an SPV for a real estate acquisition, with my name buried in the paperwork until the last possible moment. That's unusual, but doable. What kind of timeline are we talking about? 30 days to have the funds? Maybe 31 to close. This is connected to your company. It's connected to everything. I pulled into our office parking lot, a converted warehouse in Riverton's up-and-coming tech district, what my parents called that sketchy area by the river. I also need you to review our contract templates. We're going to make Barlow and Finch an offer they've never seen before. Success fee-based. We carry the risk. That's aggressive. And potentially expensive if something goes wrong. Nothing's going wrong. I killed the engine and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Same face that had sat through 1,000 family dinners being diminished, dismissed, discussed like I wasn't there. But the eyes were different now, harder, hungrier. We're going to execute perfectly, and then we're going to send some very specific invitations to a very specific guest list. Avery, are you sure about this mixing personal and professional? They mixed it first when they made my career a dinner joke for their country club friends. I grabbed my laptop bag from the back seat. I'm just returning the favor. With interest. I hung up and walked into our office, where Maya was already brewing coffee and pulling up our deployment templates on the wall monitors. Above my desk, I taped a photo I'd screenshot from the Historical Society's website Hawthorne House in its full glory, waiting for its next owner. Make them RSVP. I wrote underneath it in black Sharpie. Maya looked at the photo, then at me. You know, once we do this, there's no going back. You're basically declaring war on your family. I thought about my mother's tinkling laugh, my father's disappointed headshake, Caleb's condescension, about 32 years of being the family disappointment, the one who couldn't just follow the path, couldn't just be satisfied with normal, couldn't just stop embarrassing them with her little hobbies. Good, I said, opening my laptop. Let them come. The war room came alive at 6 a.m. Monday morning. Maya had brought in 2 junior developers, and I'd pulled our head of operations from his vacation. The whiteboard stretched across the entire wall, divided into 30 columns, one for each day. Above it all, the photo of Hawthorne House presided like a general overlooking battle plans. Listen up, I said, marker in hand. We have 30 days to turn Northline Atlas from a promising startup into an undeniable force. Here's how we win. I started writing, my hand moving fast enough to match my racing thoughts. Days 1 to 3, shock and awe proposal. We're restructuring our entire pitch. No more. Please give us a chance. We're going with a success fee model. We only get paid when we deliver savings. That's insane, Tom from operations said. If the pilot fails, it won't. I turned to face them. We're going to guarantee Barlow and Finch 12% cost reduction on their cold chain. We'll run a 10-day pilot across 4 of their distribution centers. Real-time data. Full transparency. Maya pulled up our financial models. We'd need to front the infrastructure costs. That's roughly $200,000 in server capacity and integration expenses. I'll cover it personally if needed, I said, thinking of my untouched trust fund, the one my parents had given me at 25, expecting me to buy a sensible condo in a sensible neighborhood. Dana's drawing up contracts with liability caps, but we're taking the risk. That's what makes this irresistible. Days 4 to 13. The pilot sprint. Tom, you're embedding with their warehouse teams. I want you breathing their air, eating their lunch, understanding every pain point. I sketched out the deployment timeline API integration by day 4, initial route optimization by day 6, first measurable results by day 8. Silver route needs to see immediate value too, Maya added. Their drivers hate the current routing system. If we can show even 5% reduction in drive time, we'll show 10, I corrected. Our algorithm's been testing at 15% improvement in simulations. Real world, with traffic and weather, 10 is conservative. Days 14 to 20. The evidence build. This is where we turn data into stories. I wrote media strategy in bold letters. Every percentage point saved, every driver hour reduced, every successful delivery, it all gets documented. We're building a case study in real time. I can get Jennifer Walsh from the Riverton Business Journal, Maya offered. She's been following our progress since the seed round. Perfect. Schedule her walkthrough for day 18, right when the pilot numbers are strongest. Days 21 to 27. The close legal review, terms negotiation, and the master service agreement. I drew connecting lines between tasks. Dana's team will handle the paperwork, but I'll be in every meeting. We need commitment letters from both Barlow and Finch and Silverroot by day 27. What about Stonebridge? Tom asked. Don't we need to loop in our investors? Already done. I pulled up an email on my phone. They've agreed to a bridge around the moment we have signed contracts. $2 million in convertible notes, which coincidentally is exactly what I need for a certain real estate transaction. Days 28 to 30. The reveal setup. This is where it gets personal. I wrote Project Hawthorne at the bottom of the board. Once the contracts are signed and the bridge round closes, we move fast. Dana's already set up the SPV Northline Properties LLC. The seller's motivated. Hawthorne House has been on the market for 8 months. Maya whistled low. You're really going to buy it? I'm going to do more than that. I pulled out a list I'd drafted at 3 a palm. Every person who was at that dinner is getting an invitation to a charity open house, framed as a fundraiser for tech education scholarships. They won't be able to resist charity events or their oxygen. The room was quiet for a moment, everyone absorbing the audacity of the plan. Questions? I asked. Tom raised his hand. What if Barlow and Finch wants more time to decide? These enterprises usually take months. We make the pilot results impossible to ignore, and we give them terms nobody else would dare offer. We're not asking them to bet on us. We're betting on ourselves, publicly, with our own money at risk. What about your family? Maya asked carefully. They're going to hear about this. Small town, big news. I thought about the 18 missed calls I'd deleted without listening to, the texts from Caleb about talking sense into me, the email from my father's secretary asking if I'd be at Sunday dinner. Let them hear about it from the newspaper like everyone else. I capped the marker with a decisive click. I'm done being their disappointment. Time to be their competition. I moved to my desk where I'd set up 3 monitors, one for our deployment dashboard, one for financial projections, and one showing a real-time countdown, 29 days, 18 hours, 43 minutes. Everyone clear on week 1 objectives, nods around the room. Good. Maya, set up the meeting with Barlow and Finch for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Tom, get our integration team ready for immediate deployment. I want us ready to start the pilot Wednesday morning. As the team dispersed to their tasks, I stared at the photo of Hawthorne House. In 30 days, I'd either own my parents' dream or lose everything trying. I opened a new document and started typing Proposal for Revolutionary Supply Chain Partnership Zero Risk, Maximum Reward. My phone buzzed another call from my mother. I sent it to voicemail and kept typing. The old Avery would have answered, would have apologized, would have gone to Sunday dinner and endured another round of condescension over pot roast. But that Avery had left the building at the Marigold Room, napkin on the table, dignity intact. This Avery had a mansion to buy. Day 12 hit like a sledgehammer at 2:17 a.m. The GPS integration had crashed, sending 43 Silver Route trucks on a digital ghost chase through the Colorado mountains. My phone lit up with emergency notifications as I sat bolt upright in the office's makeshift sleeping area, a couch I'd been calling home for nearly 2 weeks. Maya, I shouted, but she was already at her desk, fingers flying across the keyboard. API timeout error, she said without looking up. The temperature sensors are flooding the system. The cold snap is causing... I don't care what's causing it. I care about fixing it. I grabbed my jacket and car keys. I'm heading to the Westminster Distribution Center. Keep working on a patch. The drive through the pre-dawn darkness felt like navigating through my own doubts. Snow had started falling, thick flakes that made the road as uncertain as my future. My phone rang. Derek Walsh, Silver Route's operations director. Blake, I've got drivers calling in lost, confused, some sitting on the side of I-70 waiting for instructions. This is exactly why we don't trust new systems. I'm handling it personally. I cut him off. Give me your most critical route. Truck 17, Jorge Martinez. He's got $40,000 of frozen inventory heading to Summit County, and your system has him going in circles around Golden. Send me his number. I pulled over and called Jorge directly, switching to speakerphone as I opened my laptop in the passenger seat, tethering to my phone's hotspot. Jorge, this is Avery Blake from Northline Atlas. I'm going to guide you personally. Lady, Your computer sent me to a dead-end road. I've been driving for 6 hours. I know, and I'm sorry. Can you see mile marker 254? For the next 3 hours, I became a human GPS, tracking Jorge's truck through our back-end system while manually calculating routes. I guided him through the snowstorm, staying on the line as he delivered to 3 Summit County stores. By the time the sun rose, painting the mountains pink and gold, we'd salvaged the route. You know, Jorge said as he signed off, no other CEO would have done this. No other CEO has as much to lose, I replied, but he'd already hung up. By the time I reached the office at 8 a.m., Maya had deployed a hotfix. The system was stable, but the damage was done. Word traveled fast in Riverton's business community. My mother, of course, had heard everything. The voicemail she left was vintage Lorraine Whitaker. I heard about your little crisis from Patricia Carson. Her husband golfs with someone at Silverroot. This is what happens when you overreach. Avery, there's no shame in admitting failure. Gerald knows someone who could minimize the legal ramifications if you need to dissolve the company quickly. I deleted it and kept working. But the vultures were circling. 3 members of Barlow and Finch's board had connections to my parents' country club. By day 14, I was fielding concern calls that were barely disguised attempts to kill the pilot. Ms. Blake, Robert Hutchinson, Barlow's CFO, said during an emergency video call, "We've heard troubling reports about system stability. Perhaps we should pause. Our efficiency metrics are up 9.7% since we fixed the integration issue." I interrupted, sharing my screen to show real-time dashboards. That translates to $8,000 saved in the last 48 hours alone. Would you like to pause that? He couldn't argue with the numbers, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. The same look I'd seen at 1,000 family dinners, the fundamental disbelief that Avery Blake could deliver something substantial. Day 16 brought a new crisis. The Riverton Herald, not the Business Journal, but the gossip rag that my mother's friends devoured with their morning coffee, ran a piece, "Local tech heiress abandons family, bets company on risky venture." They'd even gotten a quote from a source close to the family. "We're concerned about Avery's mental state. This erratic behavior isn't like her." I knew that diplomatic phrasing. Pure Lorraine. "Ignore it," Maya advised. But I couldn't. Not when our potential investors were reading it over their morning lattes. So I did something the old Avery would never have done. I called Jennifer Walsh at the Business Journal directly. "I'll give you exclusive access to our pilot data," I said. "Real numbers, real impact, real story. But I need it published by day 18. What's the angle? David versus Goliath. Local startup takes massive personal risk to revolutionize regional supply chain. CEO personally guarantees results with her own capital. You're putting your own money in every penny of my consulting fees, plus a trust fund I haven't touched in 7 years. The trust fund my parents had given me to buy respectability. Instead, I was buying credibility on my own terms." Jennifer paused. "I heard you walked out on your family." "I walked out on people who think innovation is a hobby. You want to write about family drama, or do you want to break the story of the year?" She chuckled. "Send me the data." That night, exhaustion finally caught up with me. I sat in Truck 17's cabin with Jorge while he made his rounds. I'd promised to ride along to personally apologize to each driver affected by the crash. The snow had stopped, leaving the world crystalline and sharp. "Your family doesn't believe in what you do," Jorge asked during a quiet stretch of highway. "My family doesn't believe in me," I corrected, watching the dashboard GPS our system, working perfectly now, count down the miles. "Their loss," he said simply. "My daughter. She wants to be an engineer. I'm going to tell her about you. About how you sat in this truck at 3 a.m., making things right." Day 17 ended with an email that made my hands shake. Gerald had written just one line. "You're embarrassing yourself in this family. Come home." I typed back a single word, "No." Then I opened our metrics dashboard. 10.3% efficiency improvement. $12,000 saved. 17 days down, 13 to go. The countdown on my monitor read 12 days, 14 hours, 31 minutes. Hawthorne House was getting closer with every successful delivery, every saved dollar, every mile driven efficiently through the Colorado snow, and my family's disapproval, that was just fuel for the engine now. Day 18 arrived with Jennifer Walsh and her photographer at 7 sharp. I'd slept 3 hours, but adrenaline and concealer would have to do. Maya had orchestrated everything: drivers ready for interviews, warehouse managers briefed, and most importantly, our dashboards displaying real-time metrics on every screen. "Walk me through the numbers," Jennifer said, recorder in hand as we stood in Barlow and Finch's main distribution center. 12.7% cost reduction overall, I said, gesturing to the wall of monitors. That translates to $14,000 saved in under 3 weeks. Driver hours down by 11%. Failed deliveries reduced by 40%. Temperature variance incidents 0 since day 13. And you personally guaranteed these results. With my own capital at risk, yes. I led her to the loading dock where Jorge and 3 other drivers were waiting. But the real story isn't about me. It's about how technology can transform traditional industries when you're willing to bet on innovation. Jorge, God bless him, delivered the quote of the century. "This system saved me 2 hours a day. That's 2 hours I get back with my family. You can't put a price on that." Jennifer's photographer captured everything: the sunrise through the warehouse windows, trucks loading with algorithmic precision, me standing among boxes labeled with our routing codes. But the best shot, the one I knew would make the front page, was unplanned Robert Hutchinson from Barlow and Finch arriving unexpectedly and shaking my hand in front of the efficiency displays. "I wanted to see the operation myself," he told Jennifer on record. The board was skeptical, but numbers don't lie. Northline Atlas has exceeded every metric we set. Maya texted me from across the warehouse. "He's here to steal our thunder. Don't let him." But I had a better idea. "Robert, would you like to make a joint announcement?" His eyes narrowed, calculating. "What kind of announcement?" "That Barlow and Finch is committed to innovation, to supporting local technology companies, to being the first major retailer in the region to fully digitize their supply chain." I smiled. "Assuming, of course, we can finalize our partnership agreement by end of week." He couldn't back down, not with a reporter recording every word. "I think that's something we should discuss." "Let's discuss it now," I said, pulling out my phone. "I can have our legal team here in an hour." The power shift was visible. 2 weeks ago, I was begging for a meeting. Now, with Jennifer Walsh taking notes and his efficiency metrics glowing on every screen, Robert Hutchinson was the one who needed this deal. "I'll have our team review the contracts today," he conceded. Jennifer's article went live online at 3 p.m. The headline: "Local Startup Delivers Revolution. Northline Atlas Transforms Regional Supply Chain. Saves Thousands." But Maya had a better strategy. "We need to amplify this. Social media, LinkedIn, everywhere." "I don't do social media," I protested. "You do now." She thrust her phone at me. "Record a video, 30 seconds. Thank the drivers, the warehouse teams, everyone who believed in us." I felt ridiculous talking to a phone. But Maya was right. Within hours, the video had 3,000 views. Comments poured in from other logistics companies, venture capitalists, and surprisingly, from Riverton locals who remembered me as the Whitaker girl who was always tinkering with computers. The real victory came at 6:43 p.m. Derek Walsh from Silverroot called. "I'm looking at your efficiency reports," he said. "If you can guarantee these numbers at scale, we're in. 3-year minimum contract, expandable to our entire mountain region network." "Send the commitment letter to Dana Rowe at Rowe and Alder," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We'll have terms to you by morning." That night, something unexpected happened. 3 of my parents' country club friends reached out not to mock or discourage, but to inquire about investment opportunities. Margaret Foster, who'd been at that horrible dinner, sent a particularly interesting email. "Avery, I've followed your progress in the business journal. Would Northline Atlas be open to strategic investors? Foster Logistics might benefit from your technology. Please call me at your convenience. I forwarded it to Maya with a note. The tide is turning. Day 20 brought the print edition of Jennifer's article, full front page of the business section, with that perfect photo of me among the routing displays. But what made my heart race was the sub-headline, CEO risks personal fortune on innovation, delivers historic results. My father, I knew, would be reading it over his morning coffee at the country club. Sure enough, my phone rang at 9:15 a.m. I recognized the number the club's main line. I let it ring. Maya found me on the office roof at sunset, laptop balanced on my knees, working on our Series A pitch deck. Silverroot's commitment letter just came through, she said, handing me a printed copy. $5 million annually if we can maintain 10% efficiency improvements. That plus Barlow and Finch puts us at $8.3 million in contracted revenue. I did the math I'd been doing obsessively for days. Stonebridge will trigger the bridge round tomorrow. You're really going through with it, Hawthorne House. I looked out over Riverton, the mountains turning purple in the dying light. Somewhere in the historic district, that mansion stood empty, waiting. The seller accepted my preliminary offer this morning. Cash deal, quick close. Dana says we can sign papers by day 28 if the bridge round closes on schedule. And the open house invitations, already designed. I pulled up the mock-up on my laptop. Elegant, understated, with Hawthorne House Charity Gala, supporting tech education for underserved youth in gold lettering. They go out the moment I sign the deed. Maya sat beside me. You know this won't change how they see you. No, I agreed, watching the lights flicker on across the city. But it'll change how I see myself. And maybe that's all that matters. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. Saw the article. This changes nothing. You're still welcome home when this charade ends. I deleted it and went back to work. 10 days left, and everything was falling into place. The revolution wasn't being televised, it was being published in the business journal, shared on LinkedIn, and most importantly, documented in signed contracts that would transform my hobby into an 8-figure business. Day 22 arrived with Dana Rowe's legal team taking over our main conference room. Contract negotiations had become a symphony of precision, each clause carefully orchestrated to lock in our future while protecting our innovation. The master services agreement with Barlow and Finch, Dana said, sliding a 40-page document across the table. 36-month term, minimum annual commitment of $3.2 million, with success fees tied to efficiency metrics. I read every line, remembering my father's voice at countless dinners. Real business happens in contracts, not computer screens. Well, Gerald, I was about to show him what happened when you combined both. They want a liability cap, Dana continued. 10 million maximum exposure if our system fails catastrophically. Agreed, but with a caveat force majeure includes acts of God, not acts of programmer error. We own our mistakes, but not Colorado blizzards. Robert Hutchinson joined us via video at 10 a.m., his team of lawyers visible behind him like a corporate phalanx. Ms. Blake, he began formally, the success fee structure is aggressive. 15% of demonstrated savings seems high. It's 12% now, I countered, pulling up our live dashboard. Every day you delay costs you money. Sign today at 15%, or tomorrow at 17%. Maya kicked me under the table, a warning not to push too hard. But I'd learned something in these weeks. Power wasn't given. It was taken. You're gambling with your leverage, Hutchinson warned. No, I'm confident in our data. Jorge Martinez saved 3 hours on yesterday's route alone. At driver overtime rates, that's $400. Multiply by 40 drivers. 365 days. Do you really want to negotiate over percentages while hemorrhaging money? The room went silent. Then Hutchinson laughed. Actually laughed. Fine. 15%. Dana, send the final documents. Silverroot proved easier. Derek Walsh had become a convert after riding along with Jorge and seeing the system firsthand. Their contract included expansion clauses that would trigger additional revenue as we rolled out across their network. 3-year commitment, Derek said, signing with a flourish. But I want quarterly business reviews and your personal guarantee that you'll take my calls if something breaks. You have my cell number, I reminded him. I answered at 2 a.m. during the GPS crisis. But the real victory came at 4:27 p.m. when Stonebridge Capital's wire transfer hit our account. $2 million in bridge funding, convertible at our Series A valuation. Maya and I stood at my computer, staring at the bank balance. "It's real," she whispered. "We actually did it." "Not yet," I said, forwarding the balance confirmation to Dana. Now comes the interesting part. Dana had structured the real estate purchase through Northline Properties LLC, our special purpose vehicle. The beauty was in the details. My name appeared nowhere on the initial documents. The seller, eager to close after 8 months on the market, had accepted our cash offer without digging too deep into the buyer's identity. "Signing is set for day 28, 3 p.m., Dana confirmed. "The seller's agent thinks it's a corporate relocation purchase. The notary will be present. Documents ready. Your name only appears when you sign." "Perfect. And the timing of the reveal." "Title transfers immediately upon recording. You'll officially own Hawthorne House by 4 p.m. I opened the invitation design one more time. Gold embossed letters on cream cardstock, exactly the kind my mother would use for her charity galas. "Send them to print," I told Maya. "Guest list includes everyone from that dinner, plus the Barlow and Finch board, Silver Root executives, and Jennifer Walsh. Your family. Especially my family. Hand-delivered to ensure they receive them." Day 25 brought an unexpected visitor. Caleb appeared at our office, looking uncomfortable among the whiteboards and monitor arrays. "Avery, this has gone far enough." "Hello to you too." I didn't look up from my code review. "How did you find me?" "It's a small town. Everyone knows where Northline Atlas operates." He pulled up a chair, his financial advisor suit impeccable as always. Mom's beside herself. "Dad's telling everyone you're having a breakdown." "I just closed $8 million in annual contracts. If that's a breakdown, I should have one more often." "This isn't you," he insisted. "The revenge, the public spectacle." "You're right." I finally met his eyes. The old me would have sat through that dinner, smiled politely, gone home, and cried into my pillow. The old me would have spent another decade trying to earn approval that was never coming. "We're your family." "No. Family doesn't humiliate you in front of strangers for sport. Family doesn't diminish your life's work to entertain their friends." I stood up. "You chose your side at that dinner when you laughed along. Don't pretend you're here for me now." He left without another word, but I saw him pause at our metrics dashboard, showing real-time savings ticking upward like a slot machine hitting jackpot after jackpot. Day 27. Everything accelerated. The Business Journal ran a follow-up story. Northline Atlas secures major contracts. Series A funding imminent. My phone exploded with congratulations from people who'd ignored me for years. But the sweetest message came from an unexpected source. Judge Patricia Morse, who'd witnessed my humiliation at the Marigold Room, sent a formal letter. "Ms. Blake, I owe you an apology. I sat silent while you were belittled, and that was wrong. Your achievements are remarkable. If you're accepting investors, please consider Morse Family Ventures." I framed that letter, not because I needed her money. Stonebridge was preparing a $12 million Series A, but because it represented something more valuable, respect earned, not inherited. The morning of day 28, I stood in our office bathroom, staring at my reflection. Designer suit purchased for the occasion, hair professionally styled, my grandmother's diamond earrings the only family heirloom I still wore. "Ready?" Maya asked from the doorway. I've been ready for 32 years. The drive to Dana's office felt like approaching a finish line I'd been running toward my entire life. In 3 hours, I'd own Hawthorne House. In 5 hours, the invitations would be delivered. In 3 days, everyone who'd laughed at that dinner would stand in my foyer, raising champagne glasses to the woman they'd dismissed as a disappointment. "After you sign," Dana said as we prepared to leave for the notary. "There's no going back." I thought about my mother's pitying smile. My father's disappointed head shakes. Caleb's condescension. Good, I said, picking up the pen. Forward is the only direction I'm interested in. The notary's office sat directly across from Riverton Country Club, a detail I hadn't noticed when Dana scheduled the signing. But at 2:58 p.m., as I walked through the parking lot, I saw my parents' Mercedes parked in their usual spot for Friday afternoon bridge. Fate had a sense of humor. The conference room smelled of leather and old money, the kind of place where fortunes changed hands with fountain pen strokes. The seller's agent, a nervous man named Harrison, fidgeted with his cufflinks. Our buyer should arrive momentarily, Dana told him smoothly, maintaining the fiction until the last possible second. At 3 p.m. sharp, I walked in. Good afternoon. I'm Avery Blake, and I'm here to purchase Hawthorne House. Harrison's face went through several expressions: confusion, recognition, then careful professionalism. Ms. Blake, I wasn't expecting. Most people don't. I sat down and opened my portfolio, revealing the certified check that represented everything I'd built. Shall we proceed? The notary, an elderly woman with steady hands, began the ritual. State your full legal name for the record. Avery Catherine Blake. Each page turned felt like shedding skin. Initial here, sign there, date this. With every mark of my pen, I wrote myself into a story my parents had been telling for a decade, except I was the author now. The deed, Harrison said, sliding the final document across the table. I read every word of the property description, the boundaries that defined 8,000 square feet of Georgian limestone and legacy. At the bottom, a blank line waited for my signature. The pen hesitated for just a moment above the paper, not from doubt, but from the weight of the moment. 30 days ago, I'd been the family disappointment. Now I was about to own their dream. I signed with a flourish that would have made my mother proud if she'd been capable of pride in me. Congratulations, Ms. Blake, the notary said, stamping the documents with a satisfying thud. You are now the owner of Hawthorne House. I held the deed, feeling its weight paper that represented not just property, but proof. Proof that I was more than their dismissive laughter, more than their condescending advice, more than their small expectations. My phone buzzed. Maya. Invitations are being delivered now. I walked out of the conference room at 3:47 p.m., deed in hand, just as my parents were leaving the country club. We met on the sidewalk, the inevitable collision I'd been moving toward for 30 days. My mother saw me first, her face lighting up with automatic social pleasure before recognizing me. The smile froze, became brittle. Avery. My father's voice carried all his CEO authority. I heard you were back in town properly, finally ready to discuss your future sensibly. I just finished discussing it. Actually. I held up the leather portfolio, not opening it but letting its presence speak. With a notary. What are you talking about? My mother's voice pitched higher, the way it did when she sensed social danger. Before I could answer, a courier appeared. Maya's timing was impeccable, holding a cream-colored envelope. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker delivery for you. My father took it suspiciously, opening it right there on the sidewalk. I watched his face as he read, the color draining with each word. You're invited to a charity gala, I said conversationally. Saturday evening, 8 p.m., cocktails and fundraising for tech education scholarships. Black tie, of course. At Hawthorne House, my mother read, her voice barely a whisper, then louder, sharper. This is cruel. Avery, rubbing our faces in someone else's purchase. Check the host name, I suggested. She looked again. There, in elegant script, hosted by Avery Blake, founder and CEO of Northline Atlas. The portfolio in my hand suddenly made sense to them. I saw the exact moment of recognition, my mother's hand going to her throat, my father's jaw clenching the way it did when a deal went against him. You didn't, my father said. Closed at 3:32 p.m. The deed's already been recorded. I smiled, the same social smile my mother had taught me, weaponized now, I do hope you'll come. After all, we should celebrate family successes, shouldn't we? How? My mother demanded. How could you possibly remember my hobby, the one you mocked at the Marigold Room? It just secured $8 million in annual contracts. Turns out some people think computer work is real business after all. Caleb's Tesla pulled up, and he got out quickly, clearly summoned by our parents. He took in the scene, me standing confident, them looking shattered, the invitation in my father's trembling hand. Is it true? He asked. Every square foot, I confirmed. From the wine cellar you always talked about, Dad, to the ballroom where Mother imagined hosting senators. This is about that dinner, my mother said, her voice cold now, defensive. You're trying to humiliate us. No, I corrected. That dinner was about humiliation. This is about transformation. I'm turning Hawthorne House into something useful, a venue for supporting young entrepreneurs who get told their dreams are just hobbies. My father found his voice, the one he used in boardrooms when things went badly. You won't be able to maintain it. The property taxes alone are covered by 1 month of our Barlow and Finch contract. I pulled out my phone, showing him the Business Journal headline about our funding round. We closed Series A this morning. $12 million, led by Stonebridge. I believe you golf with their managing partner. A small crowd had gathered, country club members pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. Tomorrow. This would be all over Riverton's social circles. Saturday, 8 p.m., I repeated, backing toward my car. The donation minimum is $5,000, tax deductible. Of course, all proceeds go to students whose parents can't afford to support their hobbies. I left them standing there, 3 figures in expensive clothes looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. My phone exploded with messages as I drove away, other invitations being received. RSVPs already coming in. Jennifer Walsh asking for an exclusive on the gala. But I only cared about one message. Maya had sent a photo from Hawthorne House. She'd somehow gotten there first and hung a banner across the entrance. Dreams require no permission. Saturday was in 2 days. The stage was set. The players invited. All that remained was the final act. Saturday arrived dressed in perfect Colorado spring weather, as if nature itself wanted a clear view of what was about to unfold. By 7:45 p.m., Hawthorne House glowed like a jewel, every window blazing with light, the string quartet's rehearsal notes floating through the open French doors. I stood in the master suite, my master suite wearing a black cocktail dress that cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the past 5 years combined. Maya helped me with the clasp of my grandmother's necklace, the diamonds catching the light from the chandelier overhead. They're all here, she reported, looking out the window at the valet line. Every single person from that dinner, plus half of Riverton's business elite. And my parents, just pulled up. Your mother's wearing Carolina Herrera. Of course she was. Armor for battle. I descended the main staircase at 8:10 p.m., fashionably late to my own party. The ballroom was packed, Judge Morse chatting with Robert Hutchinson, Derek Walsh laughing with Jorge Martinez, whom I'd insisted be invited, Jennifer Walsh interviewing guests near the champagne fountain. And there, standing rigid near the back, my family. They'd come. I knew they would. Their absence would have been more gossiped about than their presence. Ladies and gentlemen, Maya announced from the small stage we'd set up. Please welcome your host, Avery Blake. The applause was polite but curious. Everyone knew the story by now. Prodigal daughter buys family's dream house. They'd come for the spectacle. I took the microphone, letting the silence stretch just long enough to build tension. Thank you all for coming. Before we begin the fundraising, I want to share why this cause matters to me. I found my parents' eyes across the room. My father stood straight, defiant. My mother clutched her clutch like a shield. Caleb had positioned himself slightly apart, hedge fund manager smooth. 30 days ago, at a dinner meant to celebrate success, I was told my life's work was a paid hobby, that pursuing technology, building something from nothing, wasn't real business. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Several people who'd been at the Marigold Room shifted uncomfortably. That night, I made a decision. Not out of anger, though I won't lie, I was angry, but out of necessity. I needed to prove that innovation doesn't require permission, that dreams don't need approval from those who've stopped dreaming. I pulled out my phone, projecting our metrics onto the wall behind me. In 30 days, Northline Atlas went from hobby to 8-figure enterprise. We saved Barlow and Finch over $40,000. We gave dozens of drivers their evenings back. We proved that a dismissed daughter could build something undismissible. The numbers glowed, irrefutable. I saw Robert Hutchinson nodding, already calculating how much more we'd save him next quarter. But this isn't about revenge, I continued, though we all knew it partially was. It's about the next generation, the kids in this town who have big ideas but small bank accounts, who get told to be realistic, to take the safe path, to stop embarrassing their families with their ambitions. I opened the velvet box beside the podium, pulling out the deed to Hawthorne House. This house sat empty for 8 months, waiting for someone with the right pedigree to claim it. Tonight, it becomes something better, a symbol that success isn't inherited, it's built. Every dollar raised tonight funds scholarships for students whose parents can't or won't support their hobbies. The kids coding in their bedrooms, building robots in their garages, starting businesses in their dorm rooms. Lorraine's face had gone pale. Gerald's jaw was granite. But in the crowd, I saw Margaret Foster wiping her eyes, Judge Morse nodding approval, and Jorge Martinez, who'd driven through a blizzard while I navigated him through a crisis, raising his glass high. I want to thank my family, I said, the words sharp as winter air, for teaching me that some tables aren't worth sitting at, some rooms aren't worth entering, and some approval isn't worth seeking. I raised my own champagne glass, the crystal catching the light like tears I'd never shed. To the dreamers who don't wait for permission, to the builders who don't need approval, and to everyone who's ever been told their passion is just a hobby, may you prove them wrong so thoroughly that they have to stand in your house and applaud. The room erupted, not polite applause but genuine ovation. I watched my parents standing frozen while everyone around them clapped, trapped by social convention into witnessing my triumph. The fundraising exceeded all expectations. Judge Morse wrote a check for $25,000. Margaret Foster matched it. Even Derek Walsh, blue collar through and through, contributed $5,000 for the kids who'll build better systems than yours. Blake. By 10 p.m., we'd raised $300,000, enough for 60 full scholarships. My parents left without saying goodbye, but not before I saw my father stop in the foyer, staring at the oil painting I'd hung the view from the Marigold Room, painted from memory, titled The Last Supper. Caleb found me on the terrace as the party wound down, the lights of Riverton spreading below us like a circuit board. "You really showed them," he said quietly. "I showed myself," I corrected. "They were just the audience." He started to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, your code is elegant. I looked at your platform architecture. It's brilliant." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. As the last guest departed and the catering crew cleaned up, Maya found me in the study my father's dream study, now mine sitting at the mahogany desk with my laptop open. "What are you working on?" "Series B pitch deck," I said. "This was just the beginning." She laughed. 30 days ago, you walked out of a restaurant. Now you own the restaurant owner's dream house. What's left to prove? I looked around the room at the built-in bookshelves that would hold programming manuals instead of golf trophies, at the walls that would display my patents instead of country club photos, at the desk where I'd build the future instead of preserving the past. "Nothing," I said, and meant it. Absolutely nothing. The notification on my phone showed another RSVP for next month's fundraiser. This time, from my mother. The message was brief. "Will attend. Minimum donation enclosed." I archived it without responding. Some victories don't need acknowledgement. Hawthorne House stood solid around me. 8,000 square feet of proof that the best revenge isn't living well, it's living authentically, successfully, and completely without apology. Thank you for listening to this story of transformation and triumph. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story of turning rejection into success resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What dreams are you building without permission?